So which weapons should you use on your Flins? In this video I'll be helping you guys make sure you use the right weapons on your Flins so you can max out his full potential. I'll be telling you guys what he needs on a weapon, and then I'm going to be ranking all of the polearms in the game in a tier list based around which of them are going to help Flins deal the most damage. Before we continue with that though, if you're trying to get Flins, his signature weapon, or any other characters, I'd recommend getting your Genesis crystals throughout LDshop. LDshop is a cheap, fast, and safe game top-up website that offers top-ups for many games, including Genshin Impact. As you guys can see here, these are the offers they have for Genshin, and all of them are cheaper than the official game store, starting off from 15% cheaper and even more. For example, we can see that 3,280 Genesis crystals offer. It costs $50 in the official game store, but here it only costs $39.10. That's 10.89 or more than 21% saved by using LDshop. They also have many other things like bundles, character outfits, Welkins, and stuff like that. But yeah, when you want to buy, just click on the offer you'd like to choose. For example, I'm gonna buy the 300 crystals offer. You only need to enter your server region and user ID. Obviously, make sure they're right, and then click on top up. And then you just choose your payment method, and then enter your details, and then just pay. Shortly after that, you'll just receive the crystals in your account. And right now, if you use my link, you'll get a 15% off coupon, and also an extra 5% off. That can save you up to $50. They also have more cool things on the website. For example, if you spend more than $80, that can allow you to win a free Welkin. You can go and check it out yourself. Click the link in the description or the pinned comment and top up now. Alright, so first of all, let's explain what he needs on his weapon in general first. So, generally his kit is going to be very different from your usual main DPSs, but at the end of the day, it lies down to almost the same stuff. I'd say the first thing he needs is going to be attack, because obviously a lot of things on his kit are going to scale with attack, like his lunar charge damage, his normal damage, stuff like that. Also, he can convert some of his attack into elemental mastery, which is pretty good. So you definitely want to max out your attack gains, and for that, you'd want either attack percentage or high base attack weapons, stuff like that. I feel like this is going to be the main priority for Flins. And after that, your damage is going to be able to crit like any normal DPS. So you'd want to get some crit rate or crit damage too. Both of them are going to be pretty good. You probably just want normal ratios. So getting crit rate or crit damage on your weapon is going to be pretty good. After that, you can get some elemental mastery. As I said before, he converts some of his attack into elemental mastery. So you'd want to prioritize getting attack first, but getting some elemental mastery on your weapon is not going to hurt either. You can also get some energy recharge. It's very low on the priority list because I don't think you should get it from your weapon specifically, but he does need some energy recharge, so if you can get it from your weapon, it's not really a bad thing. And then finally, damage bonus is always going to be good on characters like him. He still deals extra damage, so some damage bonus is not going to hurt, but it's not going to be high on the priority list. So as you guys can see here, it's a little different, but generally you just want the usual DPS weapon at the end of the day, which is just high base stack and then crit and stuff like that, with some exceptions that we're going to talk about in a little bit. Alright, so knowing that, let's move on to the tier list and rank his weapons. Alright, so starting off with the 3-star weapons, they're not really going to be as good because of the super low base stack. So White Tassel is going to give you just crit rate basically. Just for the crit rate, it's not going to be useless. I put it C tier, but it's not really the weapon you want to use. Halberd is basically just attack, so it's also going C tier. And then Black Tassel is HP, so it's going to go D tier. Now, moving on to your 4-star options, you have the Dragon's Bane. It's going to have a low base stack for a 4-star, and then Elemental Mastery as a substat. As I said, it's not going to be terrible. It's still usable, but it's definitely not the stat you'd want to go for. Also, the passive is kind of useless, so I just put it as C tier too. You have the Prototype Star Glitter. It's just energy recharge, and then the passive is going to increase your normal attack and charge attacks damage. He does use his normal charge attacks, so I guess it's a little bit beneficial, but it's not really the weapon you want to use. I'd also put it as C tier. It's not useless, but it's not like the perfect stats you'd want to get on Flins. Now, the Crescent Pike is just physical damage, and then some extra damage from the passive. Just for the high base stack, I also put a low C tier and not D tier, but it's also not the weapon you want to use. Blacklift Bowl is going to have average base stack for a 4-star, and then crit damage as a substat, which is pretty good. And then after defeating an enemy, you get more attack, up to 3 stacks. This is going to be pretty inconsistent. It's going to heavily depend on how many enemies are in the field, but a lot of times you're not going to be able to get any stacks. Sometimes you might be able to maximize the full 3 stacks. It depends, but it's going to be a kind of an inconsistent weapon. So with the whole stacks active and stuff like that, it's going to be like an A tier weapon. With no stacks, it's going to be like a C tier weapon, maybe a low B tier. So I just throw a high B tier and keep it there. I feel like it's always the fair place for the Blacklift. We have the Deathmatch. Deathmatch is basically the same thing, a little bit of a lower base stack, but it's going to have a higher crit rate substat. And if there are at least 2 opponents nearby, your attack is going to be increased. And if there are fewer than 2 opponents, worse, then you're gonna have even more attack increase. But you're gonna get something either way with the deathmatch, no matter what. So it's more consistent than the Blacklift, especially with refinements. It's gonna be pretty good. So I'd put it at like low A tier for now. It's definitely a pretty decent weapon on Flins, especially if you bought the battle pass and you have it. Lithic Spear is gonna give you a high base stack and then attack as a substat. And then you can also get some stacks if you use them with leeway characters. It can give you some extra attack and crit, which is pretty good, but I don't think you're usually gonna play him with any leeway characters. I guess maybe like Yellen, but it's gonna be one or no leeway characters in his teams. So just as an attack stat stick, I'd keep it at B tier, but yeah, it's not gonna be higher because you're not gonna be able to take full advantage out of this weapon. Favonius Lanes is gonna have a high base stack and then a small energy recharge substat, and then there's just the Favonius passive, which you can generate energy, which is not bad, but for a main DPS like Flins, it's not really the weapon you'd want to go for in my opinion. Energy recharge is not terrible for him, like inherently, especially if you can get like some attack and crit stats from other places, but it's not really the weapon you'd want to use. I put it like a high C tier or low B tier. Honestly, this time I'd put it a low B tier since he doesn't need some energy recharge, so it's not gonna be terrible, but I definitely wouldn't recommend using the Favonius. Royal Spear is basically just an attack stat stick, so I just put it at B tier. Dragon Spine Spear is just physical damage. It's like D tier. Hidden Cross Spear, it's gonna give you elemental mastery and then some energy. I'm not sure if it's gonna mess your rotations though, since you lose energy when you press your elemental skill, but in general, I'd put it like C tier. Catch is just energy recharge, elemental burst damage, and then crit rate. I put it C tier too. We've got the Wave Breaker's Fin. It's just an attack stat stick with some elemental burst damage depending on your team. I put it like B tier too, I think. Wound Piercer, it's just elemental mastery, and the passive you probably won't be able to trigger since you're not always going to be playing them with like a Dendro, except with Lauma for example, but usually not. It's not really the weapon for him either way. I'd put it like C tier too. I think that's the right place. Missive Wind Spear is going to be attack, and then it's going to increase your attack and elemental mastery from the passive, which is pretty good. So I put it like A tier. Very low A tier, but I think it's an A tier weapon. Battle of the Forts, it's going to give you crit rate, which is pretty good. And then when there are at least 3 different elements types in your party, your elemental mastery will be increased by a huge amount depending on your refinement. But it's going to start from 120, which is super high. Usually you're going to be able to play with 3 different elements, so it's going to be Electro. You'd want like Inefa for example, so that's another Electro, and then a Hydro, and then usually like an Anemo or Dendro or something else. That's going to be pretty achievable, and you're going to gain a huge amount of elemental mastery, which is pretty good on Flins, and then some crit rate, which is pretty good. So honestly, I think it's probably one of the best 4-star weapons you can use on him, so I put it at A tier too. Rightful Reward is just HP, so I put it at D tier. Dialogues of the Desert is completely useless, so I put it at D tier too. Prospector's Drill, it's basically just an attack stat stick. The passive is usually not very usable unless you get healed, which is not usual. I'll probably put it at B tier too, just like an attack stat stick. It's just energy recharge and then elemental skill damage. It's not that useful. I put it at C tier. Footprint of the Rainbow, it's just defense, so I put it at D tier. This Tamayurate whatever, it's energy recharge and then some attack from the passive. Probably like high C tier in my opinion, or maybe like low B tier. I put it low B tier. And then finally the new weapon, Prospector's Shovel. It's gonna give you attack, and then it's gonna boost your electro charge damage, which is gonna be pretty good, and it's also gonna boost your lunar charge damage, which is also super good. It's probably one of the best 4-star weapons you can use on him too, so I put it like A tier too. Low A tier, but it's gonna be a pretty decent weapon. Now moving on to the 5-star weapons, obviously these are going to be a little higher generally because as I explained, they're going to have higher base attacks and he appreciates high attack numbers a lot. So usually they're going to perform better than 4-star weapons except for a few exceptions. Starting off with the Staff of Homa, it's always going to be a good weapon. It's going to give you crit damage and then it's going to increase your HP and then increase your attack based on your HP, and that's going to result in a huge attack increase in general. Honestly, it's going to be pretty good. It's as good as it gets. It's just like a stat stick. So I put it S tier. I think it's a pretty good weapon for Flins too. I have the Skyward Spine, super high base attack and then a small energy recharge substat, which is pretty good. The passive is just normal attack speed, some extra damage and some crit rate. It's a good mix, it's not terrible, so I put it like low A tier. Just for the high base attack, energy recharge is going to be a little bit useful on Flins too, and then some crit rate and extra damage. It's not going to be a terrible weapon. Usually it's not good for main DPSs, but for Flins, since it's going to need some energy recharge, I'd keep it a low A tier. Vortex Vanquisher is just an attack stat stick, a huge one. Usually you're going to be able to play him with a shield since you're probably using the enough, so that's gonna be pretty good. So I'd also put it at A tier, maybe high A tier. It's probably gonna be better than all of these weapons. The Jade Wing Spear is gonna be pretty good. You're gonna be able to get the stacks. It's gonna increase your crit rate, super high base stack, and then just more attack from the passive, which is pretty good. So honestly, I put the Primordial Jade in S tier. I think it deserves it. Calamity Queller is just a super high base stack and then attack. It's basically just a super huge attack statistic. He does appreciate attack, but it doesn't really offer much besides that. So I don't think it's an S tier weapon. I'd also put it at S tier. I think it's a fair place for it. Engulf of Lightning is going to be energy recharge, and then it's going to increase your attack based on your energy recharge. He's still going to appreciate the high base stack, but in general, it's not really the weapon you'd want to use since you're not going to be building that much energy recharge on him. So the attack increase is not going to be that good. So I'd probably put it low A tier or even maybe high B tier. I'd put it next to the Skyward Spine, the low A tier. It's not a good 5-star for him, that's for sure. Staff of the Scarlet Sands. It's going to give you crit rate, and then it's going to give you attack based on your elemental mastery. So it complements his passive pretty well, and it's going to result in a good amount of attack actually. It's going to be a super good weapon on him since you're going to be building some elemental mastery. He's going to be getting some elemental mastery from his like attack thing, and then the weapon is going to be converting it back to more attack, which is going to be super good. So I think it's probably going to be one of the best weapons on him besides his signature obviously, so I would put it at S tier 2. Crimson Moon Semblance. High base stack and then crit rate. The passive is kind of useless for him. So it's basically just like a crit rate and high base stack stat stick. I would put it like A tier 2, maybe like mid A tier. I think it's a fair place for it. Lumido's Elegy. It's basically just going to be used as a stat stick too, since you're not going to be able to trigger Burden. So I'd also put it at the same place, basically just mid A tier. I have the Symphonis of Sense. It's just going to give you crit damage, and then it's going to increase your attack too, which is pretty good. The rest of the passive is not going to be that important since you're going to be on field, but generally it's also going to be a good stat stick, so I would also put it at A tier at the same place, just mid A tier. Fractured Halo. It's crit damage, and then it's going to give you more attack, which is super good. Fortunately, you won't be able to create a shield with Flins, so you're not going to be able to trigger the lunar charge damage increase. But in general, if you have this weapon, you probably have Inefa, so you probably want to use it on her. But for Flins, it's still going to be a good stat stick, so I put it at high A tier. It's going to be a decent weapon for sure. And then finally, his signature weapon is going to give a super high base stack, and then crit rate as a substat, which is pretty good. And then it's going to increase your lunar charge damage, which is super good obviously. And it's going to increase your crit damage too, which is also pretty good. And then it's going to give you energy. So it's basically everything you need almost that I listed before. So it makes it the perfect weapon for Flins. Obviously it's his signature, so it's going to be top of S tier. It's going to be considerably better than the rest of the weapons at S tier, but I don't think it's a needed like signature weapon. It's not. It's average or even below average for a signature weapon in my opinion, especially than like the Staff of Homa or like Staff of the Scarlet Sands. It's probably going to be like 10% better or something like that, which is not that huge, but generally it's going to be the perfect weapon for Flins, that's for sure. But yeah, in my opinion, he does have some decent free to play options, especially the 4 stars, and if you have pretty much any of the 5-star weapons, they're going to be pretty usable on him. Obviously they might not be the best, but you can probably get by with them. So for Flins, I do think he's going to have pretty versatile weapon options. He's just your usual main DPS, so it's going to be pretty good. But yeah, that was the video guys. Tell me what weapons you're going to be using on him. If you guys leave a like, subscribe to the channel. See you guys in the next video. Peace.